So for those of you who don't know, the Olympic Games have had a showdown with a Ukrainian sledder who has put pictures of dead Ukrainian athletes all over, grayed out pictures of them during their life, doing their sports, boxers, skaters and all sorts over his helmets. There's about 34 athletes on his helmets. Mind you, over 500 athletes have been killed during the full-scale invasion. So, he can't put them all on there, but he put on many as he could, and many of them are his personal friends. Now, this was said by the IOC. This is what oversees the Olympics. They said, this is political, and we do not want them to display this. We don't want to display this at all. Then they put out public statements that got not the greatest response.
We received that formal letter, formal request this morning to be able to wear that helmet in competition. What I'd say more generally, I'll get onto the specifics in a minute. What I'd say more generally is we have addressed from the beginning the situation of Ukrainian sports, Ukrainian athletes since the Russian invasion. And the IOC fully understands the desire of athletes to remember friends, colleagues who've lost their lives in that conflict, and, by the way, in many, many other conflicts, many other difficult conflicts around the world. As we say, there are probably 20 to 30 different conflicts going on at any one time around the world. There was an informal meeting last night with Mr. Garasevich's coach and entourage, the delegation, and we reiterated our understanding of the athlete's wish to pay tribute to his fellow Ukrainian athletes, expressing his sorrow, which he's done during training and on social media. So he has, expressed his feeling in both those cases. But that having been said, the Olympic Charter, the conditions of participation, and the athletes' expression guidelines, which were, I think there was something like 3,000 or 4,000 athletes who fed back into those expression guidelines, and they were agreed also with the Athletes Commission. We have to concentrate on the athletes' performance and sport on the field of play. And it's fundamental that there are equal rights for all athletes, and that the games need to be separated, not just from political and religious, but from all types of interference, call it interference.
So their idea was that the helmet displaying the pictures of these people who had died was too political. Now, at the same time that they were issuing this decision, this was going mega viral. U.S. figure skater Maxim is making his Olympic debut after his parents were among the 67 killed when a plane crashed into a military helicopter on January 29, 2025. He carried their memory with him to Italy and delivered an emotional, heartfelt short program. I wish this person nothing but the best. This plane crash was horrific. This plane crash was in my backyard. Many of the people who died were Marylanders from our community, and it was a horrendous tragedy. And this person went out there to hold his picture and cry and display it, and it was honored, and it isn't shown as explicitly political. Mind you, when the crash happened, it was considered political. Well, it wasn't considered just political because of the fact that there was a failure, and therefore you want to find out who's at fault. But it was also considered political because immediately after the crash, the President of the United States went on national television and blamed DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, before an investigation had been launched. He used the event to go after a political opponent of his, a political boogeyman of his administration. That is a political event. Now, I'm not saying that this person's family's death is too political to display. That is a crazy thing to believe. I am saying that this should be allowed, and I also don't know why it wouldn't also be allowed on their helmet if they wanted to display it on their helmet, like other people have many designs on theirs. As many people, have been supported by family members and they want to display, hey, thank you for getting me here. I mean, I love boxing. I hear so many times in the ring, I want to thank Grandpa Joe for, bringing me to boxing camp all those times and giving me the strength to do X, Y, and Z. I remember you, Joe. This title's for you. People, that means a lot to people. That should be allowed when it comes to this person, and it should probably be allowed when it comes to those who die from the crime of aggression. When you look at the helmet, there's nothing on it political. It's just the fact that the people on it were killed during the full-scale invasion. So is the fact of anyone dying due to the effects of a war and having pain about that, is that too political? If an athlete's, if a figure skater's son was to get blown up by a bomb and they wanted to put their name on their helmet, would that be too political for them to say, I'm skating or I'm doing whatever? Because you don't really wear helmets figure skating, but I'm doing whatever I'm doing for my son. That's too political, because the fact that it was the Russians bombing them that made it so you cannot grieve like this person can grieve. Not to even talk about the fact that even though the Russian flag is banned, there has been at least one documented instance of an athlete having the Russian flag on their helmet while they were, doing their work at the Olympics. Now, that might have been an accident, but at the end of the day, like, this is just making Ukrainians angrier and angrier. They see this person can grieve, but we can't have our people who are dying in large part because of this war be grieved because it's too political, because the circumstance of their death is too political. Now, they did come out and say, look, how about instead you guys wear a black armband to symbolize their deaths? To symbolize the fact that you're grieving, a black armband. So if they can wear a black armband, that indicates that grieving them and remembering them is fine, but their faces are too political. Like, what is that? What does that mean? If they're allowed to wear a black armband and that's okay and that's fine, then that means you can grieve them. That means you can remember them. But the faces themselves, by showing the dead athletes, by putting a face to the grieving, that makes it too political. That was not received well by the Sletter. And he responded by saying, no, I'm only going to use this helmet. He shows the helmet here.
Ukrainian skeleton athlete Vladislav Hereskevich has made it pretty clear he is going to defy the IOC ban of his helmet.
People feel in Ukraine sometimes to be forgotten, and it's important to remind the world what happens now in Ukraine.
Well, Hereskevich is still explaining his case to journalists here in Cortina. He spoke very well, spoke very powerfully in English, answered questions about why he wears the helmet. He explained all the athletes on the helmet.
I also want to remind everyone that it's like 20 people, 24 people here. But it's in total, it's more than 500 others who were killed.
Some incredible stories, some very sad stories. He made the point that Russian flags have been seen here. He feels very strongly about that, and that we shouldn't buy Russian propaganda. And it was really noticeable and telling that the coach from the Latvian team came here and spoke alongside him, braced.
The coach from the Latvian team is the guy in the red to the right.
Tim, so this story is going to run and run. It's not going anywhere at all. They mean this. They really, really mean this. It's incredibly important to them.
Yes, on personal level, many people approach me, and they're also pretty surprised that it's violate any rules, because they think it's also not violating any rules. It was athletes from US, from Denmark, from Austria, from many nations. And we get a lot of support.
Huge challenge for new IOC President Kirsty Coventry as well, who spoke only last week about her desire to focus on sport, to separate sport and politics as much as possible.
Now, they just mentioned the IOC president. As this decision continued to spiral and it got more and more attention, they tried to offer this compromise about the black band. And as it was happening, the athlete themselves, Vladislav, was bringing more and more social media attention to the fact that, hey, they're not allowing me to demonstrate with this. And it was picking up a lot of momentum. And so as videos like this were coming out, he was thinking about how to respond in public. The IOC keeps turning the memory helmet situation into the theater of the absurd. Yesterday, IOC spokesman Mark Adams said athletes must be equal.
спортсмени мають бути рівні між собою.
to each other and use this to justify banning the helmet.
It's fundamental that there are equal rights for all athletes.
І вже пізніше
Later,
того ж
that
дня
same day, the American figure
американський
skater
фігурист
honored his
вшанував
parents who died
своїх загиблих у авіакатастрофі батьків.
in a plane
Ще 2
crash.
дні до
2 days
того
before, an
американська
American
фристайлістка
freestyler also
також
honored
вшанувала
her
свого
colleague,
колегу, який трагічно загинув
who died
кілька
tragically
років
years
тому.
ago.
І, звичайно, за це вони
So yes, they have had the names of others who have died written on their helmets during these types of performances.
звичайно, за це вони не
And
отримали
of course,
жодних
they've received no
санкцій. Ця
sanctions.
ситуація
This is
могла
a perfect
слугувати
example of the term
ідеальним
double
прикладом
standard.
терміну подвійні стандарти. Раніше ми
We
просили,
asked
а
before,
тепер
now we
ми
demand to compete
вимагаємо
in this helmet.
дозволити
Since clearly
участь у змаганнях у цьому шоломі. Адже очевидно,
we're
що
not
ніяких
breaking
правил
any rules.
ми
After this, immense pressure was put on the IOC. And they tried to put out more social media conflict, more social media stuff, trying to, correct the record. Like, hey, look, we're just doing this to, enforce the rules. BBC's Port was carrying their message, as we showed earlier, right here. And he was going into these replies, fighting in the trenches. Am I showing conflict on the helmet? I'm showing athletes who died since last Winter Olympic Games. By which details did he determine that the helmet is showing a conflict? The whole ass world sees memory, but he sees a conflict. Not to mention, a lot of people did not take kindly to him saying 130 conflicts are going on, as if it's saying, oh, it's just another conflict, which a lot of people did not take kindly to. So this was getting maximum attention, not only from the wider press, but from Ukraine as a whole. Here is the Ukrainian Armed Forces and General Staff putting out the message, remembrance is not a violation. This was done after one Ukrainian athlete wrote on their hand the same thing, remembrance is not a violation, and displayed that at the Olympics. Now, many people, oh, they're from the 33rd Mechanized Brigade. A lot of Ukrainian soldiers have repeated the same thing. So finally, if we go over and listen to the president of the IOC, she is in tears over this. Christy Coventry was only recently made the chair of the IOC. And so this is the biggest crisis that she has had to date overseeing the Olympics. And she is handling it pretty difficultly, in a difficult manner, if you look at how she's doing here.
We've allowed for Vladislav to use his helmet in training. No one, especially me, is disagreeing with the messaging. The messaging is a powerful message. It's a message of remembrance. It's a message of memory, and no one is disagreeing with that. I was not speaking to him in that room as a president. I'm speaking to him as an athlete. We have these rules in place to try and be fair, and also to try and allow for us to do both things, right? To allow for athletes to express themselves, but also to allow for athletes to be safe.
So she was trying her best to soften the message, but at the end of the day, the athlete did not back off of wearing the helmet. The IOC did not back off, and they disqualified him from participating in the Winter Olympics. So he's not going to compete. I was getting messages from people who watched the program saying, like, I stayed up till like 4 a.m. to watch him compete, and now I'm finding out that he's not going to be able to compete, that they've disqualified him. And a lot of people in Ukraine, a lot of people who were interested in the situation and in watching him perform around the world are incredibly disappointed. And people are going to be asking, why was it that other people can honor the dead? Why is it that other people can write the names of dead athletes on their helmets, but the Ukrainians can't with theirs? Why is it that blowing up from a bomb is too political to be remembered, but dying from a plane crash that was also politicized isn't too political? It's the Olympics put themselves in an unwinnable position. I mean, I think that the grayed out images of dead athletes was left so little, have so little politicization or not political at all, in such a manner that they should have just let the man perform with his helmet. And now they've brought so much more attention to the helmet through this act Therefore, I think, if anything, politicizing it more than it probably would have been otherwise. Either way, the helmet has gotten a lot more attention, but you got to really feel for the athlete that you train so hard, you work to get into this position to perform, and then you can't. And I saw pictures of his father at the Olympics crying once it was announced that they wouldn't allow his son to perform. They wouldn't allow his son to, compete after he worked so hard. So, it's devastating for the family, but at least you know that he has a country behind him. Oh God, I forgot. Oh, by the way, it didn't just happen to the one Ukrainian athlete. It happened to a second one as well. An international skating union, the International Skating Union banned a Ukrainian short track speeder from entering the start line of the Olympics wearing a helmet with a quote from Lena Koskendo: "Where there is heroism, there is no final defeat." So Ukrainians calling themselves heroic is too political as well. So no dead athletes and no heroicism. No heroics.